Hey, hello everybody. Woo! Think I got this live stuff figured out, YouTube Live. So go ahead and chat in if you would. That would be great so I can make sure you're here. And in fact, I'm just going to quickly invite everyone that may have been looking in the previous room. Hi, Gus. Hello. Boy, that was crazy. So YouTube is in the middle of a transition, it looks like, between old software to do this and new software to do this. And I kind of got caught up in the middle of that whole insanity. But anyways, great to see you, Gus. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll get started in just a moment. I am going to just give people that may have been in the old event the link to the correct event, and then we'll get started. So let me just go over to the one that we were gonna do and just paste in a link so they can find me. Who else is in here? If you could chat in and say hello, that would really help me to make sure that everyone who wants to be here found it. Thanks so much for chatting in. And we'll get started, as I said, in just one moment. I'm just pasting in the new link for this updated room. There we go. All right. So thanks so much for joining us, everybody. And we are ready to talk about these new Cisco certifications. And I wanted to start just by really emphasizing what hasn't changed. There's been so much discussion of all of these changes. Let's discuss what hasn't changed first. Cisco is going to be organizing their certifications in different levels, and that hasn't changed. And the levels of Cisco certification have not changed. So we've got entry level, associate level, professional level, and expert level, and also the architect level. That hasn't changed, right? We've had that for years and years and years. The other thing that has not changed, I want to emphasize to you, is the fact that we are still going to be able to specialize in different tracks. So if security is the biggest deal to you, no problem, you're going to have a security track. If collaboration is your hot button, you're going to have a collaboration track. If data center is something that excites you, you're going to have that track. Service provider. So those two fundamental things about Cisco certification have not changed. Levels of certs and tracks of certification. Now, let's talk about what has changed. The first thing, and this is the thing that got everyone all excited and some people all upset and caused all this fanfare on the internet, is that some of the certifications have been killed. I suppose the better word would be retired. So entire certifications that existed in the different levels and tracks were killed off. What's the prime example of that? Well, in the entry level, the CCENT, which used to be ICND1, is no longer. It's gone. Now, Cisco will really start pushing in this level of entry level. They'll really start pushing, I believe, the new entry level. It's the CCT, the Cisco Certified Technician. It's interesting because this was always there. It was just pretty much ignored because of the very popular CCENT. And what's also interesting is the fact that the CCTs will be track-based. Right now, there's a routing and switching one, and there's a data center one, but those will retire, and there'll be, I would guess, a whole slew of new ones around the tracks that Cisco is keeping, like enterprise, infrastructure, collaboration, data center, security, service provider. So the CCENT is gone, but what will be emphasized is a whole slew of CCT designations that are track specific. Very interesting. The next thing, as far as the elimination of certs go, is the CCDA. The CCDA and the CCDP are gone. Interestingly, the CCDE still lives. So think about it. The associate level cert that emphasized design is gone. The professional level cert that emphasized design is gone, but they still have a CCDE expert exam. So how would you get ready for that? Well, what Cisco did was they took the design elements that were in the CCDA and that was in the CCDP, and they integrated those design elements into the various curriculum that does live on in the associate and the professional levels. So you'll be studying design right alongside your implementation of the various topics. So no more CCDA, no more CCDP. What else changed as far as death to certifications that existed before? Well, now we get the most popular one that everyone's talking about, and that is the killing off of all of the CCNAs except one, simply called CCNA. So just to recap you, and by the way, don't worry about taking notes. I will provide you with all of the notes that I'm referencing. I will provide you with all of the notes in a nice, succinct write-up on ajsnetworking.com immediately following this live YouTube. So I'll give you the notes from this session. Anyways, CCNA Cloud, gone. CCNA Collaboration, gone. CCNA CyberOps, gone. Data Center, gone. Industrial, CCNA Industrial, gone. CCNA Route Switch becomes the new CCNA, if you will. CCNA Security, gone. Service Provider, gone. Wireless, gone. Now you look, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different CCNAs that are killed off. Do you think the one CCNA that remains will incorporate all that information? No way. Not even close. No way. I mean, it is a very, very route switch and service centric CCNA that remains. And all the Internet of Things and the data center content and the intense security content and wireless content, all of that stuff from those CCNAs that they killed off, that migrates up into the professional level. So I think one of the misconceptions that a lot of people have is that, okay, with there being one consolidated CCNA, that this exam would be tremendously vast and tremendously difficult because it would include everything from those CCNAs that they retired, and that's just not the case. In fact, if you compare the blueprint of the CCNA that remains to the old accelerated ICND1 and ICND2 combined CCNA exam, this CCNA exam of February 2020 is going to be much easier if you were to do that head-to-head comparison. Fewer topics that you have to master. So it's very interesting. A lot of misconceptions about the new CCNA. What else? Well, as far as removals go, they didn't just stop at CCNA. Two of the professional certs other than CCDP, we said CCDP is gone. Two of the other NP tracks are gone. CCNP Cloud, no longer, and CCNP Wireless, no longer. Now, this is a bit of a head scratcher, right? Because again, there's a CCIE Wireless, and there's Cloud Tech that's certainly important. Once again, those removed NP tracks, that content just gets shuffled into stuff that still exists. So specifically, the cloud material works its way into the enterprise infrastructure and the data center where it probably belongs best. The wireless works its way into the enterprise track. So there's a lot of consolidation here that took place and just moving the content into different tracks and different levels. Something else that is a big change. So just to recap, we've talked about the removal of certs, CCENT, a whole bunch of CCNAs, the CCDA, the CCDP, and a couple of the NP tracks gone. Now the other big change is requirements, right? The whole requirement process changes, and this is where I think Cisco really wanted to follow the steps of Microsoft and Amazon and other very popular certification vendors. They wanted to, as much as possible, have their certifications represent role-based certs. So you go into the CCNP Enterprise track, for example, and you have a core exam you take, and then you select from electives, if you will. So individuals can tailor their cert better to the job role that they're in. So the requirements are much more interesting now, aren't they? It's not like route, switch, T-shoot, ta-da! Instead, it's a core exam, and then based on your job role, you could specialize. So a great example is the NP Enterprise. If you were a big route switch person, you would go into the elective after the core exam that's advanced routing and switching. But if you're a wireless person, you'd go and grab the enterprise wireless cert elective. You can imagine people that are doing multiple roles, getting the core passed and then taking multiple of those specialty exams. So it's a really interesting way to do it. I love it because it really does accommodate someone's job role. Now, we talked about the removal of certs as a change. We talked about the requirements. They change, and oftentimes you can just start down a path with no prerequisite. That's great. But the third major thing that's different is Cisco took this as an opportunity to really update some of the formats that they wanted to update. For example, the CCIE route switch which is now the CCIE Enterprise Infrastructure, if you just look at that one, it's getting a major format overhaul. So they use this as an opportunity to change exam formats where they wanted to or they need to. So a great example is in that CCIE, it was a troubleshooting section, a diagnostics section, and a config section. With this new certs of February 2020, they decided to make it a 2-section exam. And it's got like a design emphasis and then a config and implement emphasis. So it goes from 3 sections to 2 sections, and there's a lot more simplicity in the overall approach that you can take to the CCIE Practical Lab exam. Something else that they did from a format perspective is they finally decided to award a certification for passing a written qualification exam. It used to be a huge pet peeve of mine when I would see a resume or a CVE. I would see a resume and it would have CCIE and then in little letters, written. Well, that would annoy me because there really is no such certification as the CCIE written. The candidate is probably trying to show that they're practicing for their lab, or they're trying to have their resume come up in CCIE searches, or they're just hoping no one notices the little word written. I didn't like it. Now, Cisco really accommodates this great, because when you pass the qualification exam for one of your CCIEs, you are awarded a certification for doing so. So that's really a great change to the program. So why in the world is this happening? Well, number one, and this is all my opinion, number one, Cisco had a lot of changes inside of Cisco Learning. And I think as a result of that, a lot of the exams were going very, very stale, all kind of coincidentally around the same time. I mean, the CCDA had not been updated in years. I go up to CBT Nuggets, where I teach for every day, and I look at my CCDA up there, and I'm like, wow, I did that in like 2014. That cert was so ready for a refresh. The NA security was ready for a refresh. The NA cloud didn't get any traction. The NA industrial didn't get any traction. The NA cyber ops wasn't getting all that great a traction. So they had stale exams. They had certifications that just weren't that popular. So they said, let's just change this. And let's have fewer exams and certs we have to worry about that make more sense. And as I said in this live stream a moment ago, these are better for a role-based approach to your certification. I think they wanted overall better exams and better content and better protection of that. So if you look at CCNA, for example, with one CCNA now, they can have a really large question bank that they can rotate in frequently to help combat the piracy of the test questions. So that's great stuff. Like we said, I think they wanted to experiment with some new formats. We see that in the new CCIE route switch, if you will. And what a great way for them to get caught up on all of this stuff. So we've got a comment. The written would become a CCNP route nowadays, becoming a CCNP route nowadays allow you to go directly into the CCIE Enterprise Lab. I know it's insane, but is that the only official requirement? Well, Cisco has a tool for you to check on the conversions. So you definitely want to use that little conversion tool. Uh, I recall reading this. If you pass the written now, you don't have to worry about passing the new written. So I think the answer to your question is no. You can't get the NP route and then go directly to the new enterprise lab. I do not think that would be possible. You're going to have to pass the current written or the new written in order to qualify for the lab. Double check me on that, but I'm pretty sure I'm correct. By the way, I mentioned that I would share with you what I'm going to be working on. Well, I just got an email yesterday from Cisco Learning, and it said, "Hey, Anthony, it's time for you to renew your CCIE." And I was just like, oh my gosh, it seems like I just did that. That happens all the time to us, right? How time flies. So I have 6 months now in order to pass one of the written exams. I can pass the route switch again, or my choice, I'm going to go after the CCIE data center written. So if you want to follow along with my studies on that, check out my blog site at ajsnetworking.com. Remember, I'll be posting notes from today's live stream there, and I'll also be documenting my study journey through the CCIE data center written, which is how I'm going to choose to renew my CCIE in route switch. So what other questions do you have for me? And just chat those in, and I'd love to take those live here. And then, of course, I'll be looking for your questions in comments to the posting that I'll do of this live stream up on my YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can also contact me through that blog site I mentioned at ajsnetworking.com. You can add a comment to any blog post. I respond to all of those. And you can use the Contact Anthony link if you'd like to speak to me privately one-on-one. That's right up at the top of the blog site at ajsnetworking.com. So any other questions here in the live stream before I wrap it up? Remember, there are two things that didn't change. We still have levels of certs and we still have tracks. The three big things that changed, well, there were some certifications that were retired. Goodbye. There were some requirement changes. And finally, there was some format changes that Cisco was able to introduce. Well, I don't see any more questions here in the live stream, so I'll go ahead and shut it down, get this posted for everyone to watch. Oh, wait a minute. I plan on getting the CCNP route switch before the deadline. They're getting rid of CCNA security. If I want to focus on security, should I go after the CCNP security? Well, first of all, I love what you're doing here. You're going to get your CCNP route switch, which I consider like the foundation of Cisco Certs. I love that you're getting that before the deadline. Awesome, rocket, great. Now, since you want to focus on security, absolutely. Don't be distracted by the new CCNA when it comes out. I would recommend you ignore it. You'll know that material. If there's anything there you want to take a look at, it would be the network programmability and automation section of that new CCNA, but that would be it. Absolutely, you want to be focusing on the CCNP security. And if you finish up your CCNP route switch early enough, then go ahead and start studying in advance for the new core exam that they have announced for the CCNP security. So when that exam goes live in February 2020, you're like ready to take it because you've already been studying for that core exam. So that's a great approach, and congratulations on the great work that you've been doing and the great work that you have ahead. Cool stuff. Well, Ryan asks, does AWS Certs work well with any particular Cisco certs? They do a little bit, but the more I think about it, do not get distracted with that. You know, the Amazon certs are very specific. Even the entry level one that's called Cloud Practitioner, they are very specific to AWS services. So they're not going to go into data center content. And that's what we would want them to do to have Cisco carryover. They really don't. So if you want to pick up a quick AWS cert, awesome. Check out Cloud Practitioner. In fact, I have a great book that you can purchase that is the cert guide for the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam. It's all you need for that exam, that book. It's published by Pearson, but you know, it's not gonna directly help you with Cisco. So don't get too distracted by like, woo, I'm going all levels of AWS cert now. You know, don't spread yourself too thin. A point is made here, at least as was told by cert support, older exams, older than 3 years, become obsolete. So if you got CCNP security, you'll still be a CCNP after February 2020, but the new specialization for the expired exam won't come in. Yes, great point. So a lot of people are going to be like grandfathered in to the new cert because they have the old, but the expiration of that old exam timer still ticks and you don't automatically get the new one. That's a great point. You know, my approach, by the way, excuse me, let me take some more artificial lemonade from our sponsor. My approach is always tracking to the new stuff. So I'm going to pass the CCIE data center written within the next 6 months. But guess what? Even though I don't have to, I will still take the new CCIE data center written in February of 2020. I mean, that's just how I operate because I always want my certs to be refreshed. All right. A question from Gus. If someone is studying now for the CCNA route switch, do you recommend to continue with those studies or wait for the new CCNA? No, don't wait for the new CCNA. If you're studying right now for ICND1 and ICND2, finish it. That is my recommendation. And really, the reason for that is this simple. They're just too far off still. You know, these new exciting exams and curriculum, they're just too far away still. Don't lose the traction. Get that cert. Kevin asks, what is your concern about people automatically gaining the new CCNA without avidly knowing its material? Yeah, Kevin, not a problem, and here's why. In my opinion, if they're an old CCNA and then they move into the new CCNP, they'll end up getting that stuff they missed. Programmability and automation is everywhere in these new certs, it seems. So, sure, they didn't get that at the NA level, but they'll inevitably end up getting that as they move throughout the various levels. So that's why I don't think it is a huge concern. If I were interviewing someone and they said, yeah, I got my CCNA back in, 2019, and this is the year 2020, and I'm interviewing them, I would just probably ask them, okay, well, how familiar are you with programmability? How familiar are you with automation? These were topics that were added. Are you open to learning those, etc.? So that's how I would handle it. And yeah, Kevin brought up that same point. Yeah, employers are really going to expect you to know about that. So yeah, that's another reason why I say we should always keep current. Now, in the earlier example I gave addressing a specific question, I said ignore the new CCNA, but note it was in that specific case where that person has just gotten their NP route switch and now they're going to be moving into like security. For them, for that specific case, it didn't make sense to go backwards for me. Oh, no problem, Kevin. By the way, this will be posted on my channel so you can catch all of it that you may have missed. Well, I'm going to shut down the live stream now. Thanks for all the great questions. As you can hear, my voice on this live stream is about to completely give out. Thanks so much for joining me, everybody. I hope you have a great time in your studies. Contact me if there's anything I can do for you. And hey, maybe you'd love to join me in CCIE Data Center Written Studies. I'd love to have you join me in that and follow along on my blog at ajsnetworking.com. And remember, I'm creating new nuggets every single working day at cbtnuggets.com, where we love to watch, learn, and conquer. Thanks for joining me, everybody.